Welcome, all of you. This is a topic I think that has been long in the making. Very topical subject this week. We've had a fair bit of sort of controversy in the press as well in terms of parenting and parenting decisions. I promise you, I've had no role in placing those. It's not promotional material for this event. But this is a subject of great professional as well as personal interest for me. I work a fair bit in sport, legal side of sport, working with the athletes, and also at the policy level, trying to understand and unlock the potential of sport and physical activity in India. But it's also very personal because I have two children of my own. They're 9 and 6 and just beginning their sporting journeys. Very different ways of looking at sport for them. The 6-year-old, when the last Olympics came around, was 5. And we told him, hey, the Olympics are coming up in a few weeks. He said, yes, I know, but you have to be at least 13 to participate. So he thought we were suggesting that he should participate in the Olympics. No shortage of confidence there. So on the other hand, my daughter just played her first mixed inter-school football match earlier this week. And in the lead up, they had a team meeting and all of the boys told her, hope you enjoy your time on the bench because that's where you're going to be. So we're navigating a very diverse set of some confidences, some biases, some challenges, which all parents end up having to deal with. Now, parenting at the best of times is challenging. Sports parenting probably adds a few more layers to that. And today is about unlocking and unpacking some of those challenges. Why are we doing this? This is not about advice. This is not about finding, there is no one way to parent. There is no one way to sports parent. But I think this is about finding solidarity, building community, and just understanding perspectives of people who are in that journey, been there, done that, and to some extent to learn a little bit more about how we can do this and navigate this journey. Now, there's not a huge amount of research around sports and parenting, particularly in the Indian context, but there is some international research, and it's worth looking at some of this. And I think perhaps the most interesting one for me of all was actually the roles that parental behavior plays in sporting journeys of children. So it's typical, it's not what you say, but what you do. And the Australian research study suggests that when at least one parent is inactive, so not necessarily playing sport, only 53% of kids end up playing organized sport. But the minute where at least one parent actively participates in organized sport, that goes up by 50% to almost 72%. And the minute there's at least one parent who not only participates but also volunteers, huge spirit of volunteerism there, that number goes up to 90%. So, this is just one layer of parenting, is how you actually relate yourself to sports and physical activity. An interesting one. First, we will be having a panel discussion with 3 parents. And before that, I'm going to play a short video, which I think is one of the most fascinating advertising campaigns relating to the Olympics. I think it sets the tone perfectly for our session.
Você tá bem. Esqueci.
Alles gut. Ich war nur so ein kleines Baby.
Hey, lass den in Ruhe! Ruf deine Mutter an!
E aí, gatinha? Tu tá indo pra onde? Tu tá indo pra onde?
大赛马上又要临近了，
我不想再练了。
儿子，你行的啊，你可以的，孩子。
First of all, thank you, Mom. So, three wonderful moms here. Would love to just understand first a bit of your journeys, and I can start with you, Teresa. Just your role in parenting, where your child has got to. You have two children. Where are they in their sporting journeys? And how would you position your role as a parent in that?
Rihanna started when she was 9 years old. She's 15 now. So, 9, when she started, she came and told us that she wants to play a sport. And she used to be always very sporty, but we hadn't really started sending her for anything organized, as you say. So, there was a football academy close by, so we enrolled her there. And that's how it started. So, I used to take her, and thankfully, by then I had quit my corporate career and I was at home. So, it was easy enough for me to take her for coaching. We took her, and then there was some kind of, they were looking for better players, and there was a trial, and she made it. My husband refused. He said, "Don't send her. She doesn't know. She can't play." And even when she started off, it was very difficult because she was, I think, probably the only girl playing football in that academy at that time, and we didn't have much hope. But she went and she got selected for whatever reason. But after that, it was all about, and she was more particular than anyone, that she wanted to go for training. And it becomes very difficult because my husband's working and I have my own schedule. So we had to kind of make time for it. And it was more because of her insistence that we actually took her. And then slowly she started improving and improved quite a bit. And then COVID hit. Then all sports, everything stopped. But we, even at that point of time, because of her interest, we were looking at things that we could do to help her improve herself. So then we heard about this academy that was run by a Dutch coach called Bo, and they were providing one-on-one trainings, which the academy she was with wasn't. And we asked them, and then we enrolled her there, and that actually made quite a difference to her, individual performance. And then, it went on from there, and then she played multiple competitions as a mixed team. And again, most of the time, she was the only girl then. And it is, again, very difficult, I guess, for football. The competition is a lot lesser for girls, but when you have to play with the boys, you have to be really good to be even there. And after a point, I think there was a rule that if a club has to have a license, then they also need to have a women's team. And that's how she started. And she played quite a bit in school as well. And wherever she went, she was really, getting a lot of laurels because she was playing very well and she would get all sorts of individual awards. So then we were like, okay, we should find out what else we can do because it's a team sport. It's not necessary that where they go to train have programs to help individuals. It is more about the team. So then we, whatever she played, she got selected for Karnataka. She got selected for the India team after that. She played for India. She came back, and there was really no, follow up in the sense that she played, she came back, but there's nothing to continue her fitness or improve her stamina or anything like that. We really didn't know what to do. Then we started speaking to a lot of people, including her coaches from the club, and people. We were put in touch with people in France, in Portugal. We spoke to all of them, and everybody said send her to the US. But in the US, at that age, that she's 15, there was nothing that we could do. There was no options left for us, and slowly we started, researching, googling actually, and then we found that UK has schools that specialize in, football, and there are schools in Portugal, but they said it doesn't come integrated with a school program, and for us even that was important because here academics was taking a little bit of a back seat because she was out playing a lot, and then it became we didn't want language to be another problem that she would face if we had to send her abroad. That's how we finally decided on going with a school in UK. And now she's there. She's in a school that is run by, school is a private school, but they have a football program that is run by Man City. So she trains and studies. And there in school, they're very particular that her academics cannot drop because then she's out of the sports program. So she's only been there since July. So we'll have to see. And now she also plays for a local club there.
Okay, wonderful.
So, yeah.
Dr. Sunita, a slightly different stage of your journey. You've had a much longer journey, probably seen very similar things. Can you talk us through what that's been like?
I would say we're very accidental sports parents. I'm a doctor, my husband's a doctor. But I had one rule when the kids were small, which is whatever you start, you have to ask me 6 months for that class. And then once you start it, you have to do it for 1 year. So this applied to whatever they wanted. And so tabla class, he had to ask 6 months and then had to do it for 1 year, even though he hated it. So it was the same with tennis. Adil saw this tennis academy near our house and he said, "Can I play tennis?" I said, "You keep asking me, then I'll ask the coach." And I think that sort of brought a huge amount of desire for when they started, and they had to persist for 1 year. A month into tennis, and I think he knew, he was just 5.5, he knew he loved it. So it's been now 20 years of doing tennis. And I think initially it's about, he was just having fun. We didn't really understand it. We were busy with our careers. I think my husband watched his first tournament in the US, a USTA under 12, and he watched the final and he played for 3 hours and won that title. And he told me, "My God, I didn't know my son plays such good tennis." And I think that's the kind of, sports parents we were. But I think Adil knew, and as Teresa said, I think I've seen it's very important for the child to want it. And so in 8th grade, he told us he wanted to drop out of school. And he was India's #1 when he was in under 12, under 14. But this was a big decision. And we are all professionals, education has been everything. And he said, "I'm not learning anything in school. Anyway, I want to do tennis and it takes 4 or 5 hours." And so we discussed it, and he was at Inventure. He was initially at Art of Living School. And then in Venture, Noreen was incredibly supportive. She even had videos. They used to record all the sessions for him. So, but then the kids were just waving in class saying, "Hi, Adil, play well." So that wasn't going too well. This was the online before online. And I think that 8th grade, that decision. So finally we told him, okay, we said, we are okay if you drop out of formal school, but you need to get a high school degree. And so we put him in an online school in the US initially, and then he moved to NIOS. And I think the National Institute of Open School has been phenomenal for these athletes. So he did 10th, and I was on top of it, that, you have to sign up. And the NIOS has where you can do on-demand education. So he could do 10th and 12th and take the exams as he wanted. And he resisted us, but I said, "Adil, you will one day thank us." And today he thanks us because now he tells me, maybe I'll get a PhD someday. But I think that those sort of decisions, and it was easier being a sports parent when he was doing very well, because he was winning so much, and then he represented India for Junior Davis Cup and took them to the World Group Finals, and it was extremely exciting. So we were all there with, India flag, and he was, I would say he really pushed us because my mom is American, so he had a US passport. And he said, "I want to play for India." And so we said, okay, he gave up his US passport because India doesn't allow dual citizenship. So he gave up his US passport, took an Indian passport in order to be able to play for India. And I think for us as parents, we knew we needed to support him. So as Teresa did, we would keep researching and finding things. He won the French Open. There was a thing in India where if you won it, you got to France and you could play the junior French, and he won that. And that's where Tony Nadal saw him and said, bring him to Mallorca. And I think at the time it seemed amazing. He was 16, you get picked up, you're hitting with Rafa Nadal. But there were many things we didn't know. One, that his body was not ready for men's tennis. And I think he was to play Australian Open Juniors. They said start the men's circuit. So he started the men's circuit at 16. And when he went there, he was India's #1 player. He was top 100 in the world. He should have been playing the junior slams. He started playing men's and he got injured. And I think I would say it's easy being a sports parent when your kid is doing well. It was very difficult being a sports parent when they get injuries and the whole, and maybe we'll discuss this in the panel. But anyway, from 16 to 23, he has had multiple injuries. Many times we thought he would give up. And during COVID, he put on Instagram, I'm giving up. He says, I have not made it, quote unquote, made it, so I am stopping. And his coach from Delhi, who had trained him, had taken him to Junior Wimbledon and, all the his best results in juniors was under him, called him up. And he said, buddy, define made it. And that got him thinking, what is made it? Is it only if I win a Grand Slam? Is that making it? Is it if I was, number one in juniors? What is it? Why am I saying I haven't made it when I'm 20 years old? And so he told us, I want to go back onto the circuit, but this time I want to have fun. He said, I want you guys coming with me. I don't want to be in Europe. I don't want to be so far from home. I would love to have my base here in Bangalore, be at home and travel when I need to. But India doesn't have, you don't have the infrastructure here. So we've tried everything, including building a court at home to create that structure. So we said, okay, we'll try and come with you. I changed a lot of my own practice. I do telemedicine, so I could go anywhere with him. Arjun does teleradiology, so he could be with him. And when you're down, there are very few people there with you. And I would say as a sports parent, that is the time, as a parent, we had to step up and be positive and say, okay, if you want to do it, we're there. Forget about the association, forget about everyone else. Let's do it together. And so as a family, we started planning how he could come back, getting him physio, getting him rehab. And you have to research, I think, researching and helping because they don't know, what to do. I think then COVID hit, and again, he thought about it, and he said, I think I'm done. But if I can come, so he came home, he was with us a year, and he said, no, I want to go back, but again, I want to have fun. And so he is back on the circuit. Last year was his first year without injuries. One whole year without, MRIs, and I can't tell you as a sports parent, if they play that match and they don't come out with a ligament tear and some back something and some hip something and some tibial compression fracture, which is why Vijita and I run the sports clinic in Malleshwaram. But I think that 1 year without an injury, and the confidence and injury, he lost so much confidence with his injuries. It's taken so long to come from ground up. And last year, this was his first, I see you have it up there, his first men's doubles title. And Vishnu, who's much older, so Adil immediately, and we were watching online, immediately was on the phone talking, and Vishnu's like, who are you calling? He says, my mom. So Vishnu's like, why? You haven't won a futures title before? He says, no, I haven't. This is my first, title. And everyone expected, because he had been number one, that he would be doing well in men's. And that, when that didn't happen, they think you either give up or, you're a loser. But it was so important for us as a family that and we said, Adil, you can do it. And I think he's on it. He won 4 titles last year. He got into the Challengers qualifying, which is happening today on his own rank. And so we're still there. We're still sports parents, hanging in there.
From a sports parent to also a sports grandparent now, Raji is going to tell us about the whole journey and maybe your definition of what it is to make it.
Good morning, all of you here. And can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. And all of you in the audience who've come to listen to our experiences on a Sunday morning. When Nandan called and said, come to be on this panel, oh my God, I was of course excited, but 20 years of memories came back one after the other. Being a swimmer mom, all this started coming into my head. It is just, it was like now when I think about it, it was like, I always say it's like a different janma. And the dynamics of a swimmer parent is very different. You have to be, so that I don't miss any of my points. You it's very difficult in the sense that my daughter Meghana was swimming in the pool, but I think, of course, she worked very hard, but I think the exhaustion was even more for the parent. And then she started swimming when she was 8, and I was the mom and the parent, and my husband was the father had to earn the bread, the butter, and the jam for the extracurricular activity. So I did this. I gave up whatever I was doing. I was running a small boutique, children's clothes boutique, and whatever, all that I gave up because this child went on to the national scene in a couple of years. And we, as a family, because the dynamics of a sports family is very different. As a family, you have to work, you need support system, you have to work on it. I also had another child who was, we'll talk about him also. He was also into the sport, but gave up earlier. But Meghana, when she decided that this is the extracurricular activity, I tried everything from Bharatanatyam to Hindustani classical music. But swimming was something which from day one, she was passionate about and she enjoyed. And I put her not for earning those medals. For me, it was the process more than the outcome. And I think that is what I can talk about because it really helped. The outcome is still there, thanks to the swimming. I feel, the personality a sport child earns while doing the sport is what pure academics cannot give. Of course, sport gave her a lot. She had a lot of highs. She won more than 400 national golds. She went for the Asian Games. She got qualified for the Asian Games, and then she got all this led to a stint in Oxford. She won the Rhodes Scholar. She became a Rhodes Scholar and had a stint in Oxford, and then McKinsey, and then did a MBA at Harvard Business School. But more than anything, I think it is the way you deal with pressure, the way you deal with the highs and lows, the successes and the defeats. That is what swimming taught her. And I think that was the really crucial part of my journey, to let her deal with the emotions, help her deal with the emotions, help her, it's not just always success and defeat, and create that stable environment. Those were days when there was no, there was no mind coach, there was no dietitian. I was the dietitian, I was the mind coach at all. And there was, including driving the child up to school, feed breakfast on the way, and seeing that before the second bell rang, you're at school. So all these things as a parent, and of course, we really, she got a lot of her aspirations were fulfilled. She runs now she's an entrepreneur running a millet-based industry. But what I would think is most important is you have to, what I did was to deal with the emotions and also modeling your own, not only the child's emotional intelligence, modeling yourself to be a a strong person and not have emotional regulation, and create self-awareness, encourage a child to have self-awareness, and you bring out a really confident person. It is not just about the medals. It is not the Nisha Millets and the Meghanas and the Hakimuddins who won the medals. But I want to tell you, all the kids who swam and maybe didn't win medals, but today lead really full, healthy, happy lives. We didn't know, yeah, we didn't know about it is not necessary because every child is different. So I mean, every situation is different. We tried our best. We didn't know jargons like thoughtful parenting, but we did our best.
Thank you so much. And so I'd like to next talk a little bit about just the practicalities of parenting. As you know, we see parenting having to evolve. All of us have to evolve as parents. Athletes have to evolve through these journeys as well, from starting to play, making sure they have fun while they're at it, to actually starting to provide more and more in-depth support, needing to understand how sport works. Many people are not sporting themselves, so getting deeper into that, then building relationships, perhaps with coaches, with other experts, nutritionists, and then getting even deeper into how do you progress. So what are the tools you've used so far? And in particular, what I'm interested in is actually the allocation of responsibilities within your family. There might be other children. How do you deal with your other children? But also between two parents, is there sort of a formal line and informal line? How the research suggests that very often it's the mother expected to provide the emotional support, the father gets into the technical side, but every family is different. And how have you played this game of parenting?
For me, it was more about actually making sure she gets to training. My husband obviously is a technical expert when it comes to football. I don't know anything about it. But he was always there. But we always made sure between the two of us, depending on our convenience, because my schedule is very rigorous. And because he works for a corporate, is a little more easy. So at the time when I started the restaurant, he would be the one who was doing most of the, taking her to school, taking her for training. And it is difficult because she used to train at Garuda Mall and she goes to DPS East, which is Sarjapur. So that's a 3 hour, just the journey one way. So it would be very difficult, but when it is convenient for me, I would make sure that I take her. And depending on how his schedule is, he would take her, but we would make sure that she never missed because she was particular. There were days that we would wake up at 4:15. We wouldn't wake up, she would wake us up because she was particular. So if Rihanna has reached where she is, it is more thanks to her, determination and perseverance than us.
And on that line, have the challenges that you faced evolved? Are they different things? I mean, it starts very logistically, right?
Yes.
Just making sure they're getting the right food, taking them, driving them somewhere,
yeah,
making
like-
sure they're safe. But what are the new challenges that she's brought up? I mean, not that it's all challenges are different.
Well, in the UK now, it's a lot easier because she goes to the school and the training is in school. So that whole travel itself is cut down. So she doesn't, and she gets to she would miss classes. She would miss a lot of classes here. But the school was so accommodative. DPS East, when it comes to sports, I think they will support you to the end of it. But but she would miss out. That's what I always thought that she's actually missing out on lessons, and because there's no way that she's not, it's not an option to drop out, at least before she finishes her 10th. So, and NIOS is great, but I feel that they miss out on that, bonding with other kids and actually growing up around other kids, if that is an option, because they don't go to school. My husband doesn't agree with me, but yeah. So going to the UK has really helped her. Her perspective has changed in the past 3 months. 2 weeks after going there, she was calling, saying that I don't want to do this. I miss home too much. I miss my friends, and I want to come back. It was a shock for us because it is a huge step that we had taken at that point of time. And we're like, okay, you just give it another couple of weeks, make friends and see how it goes. And now she she's she's got some midterm break happening, and she went to our friend's house, and she said, I don't want to go back to India. So because she's really enjoying her, she was a child who never spoke much about academics. She's talking about that. She's also playing. She's playing in school. She competes at a school level. Because she's now playing for the club, she gets that exposure as well. She's figured out, she's 15, but she's figured out that there is more of a career that she can get if she's not in India in sport rather than coming back.
Wonderful. And Dr. Sunita, just taking yourself through your journey as a parent, particularly a sporting parent, were there different challenges at different phases? How did you stay, in some ways, emotionally attached with your child to understand their needs and the evolving needs, and in some sense be self-reflective as well as two parents trying to help a child navigate?
No, I think that's a great question, Nandan, and I think there's no easy answer, and there's probably no one answer. And I think I would say, as a sports parent, while they evolve, we also evolve. So I feel like we as parents evolved during this journey. So initially it's about logistics and where do I find a good coach, and let me talk, should I get him a sports nutritionist when they're junior? But the way we could speak when he was young to say, we found this sports nutritionist, it was more prescriptive. Especially as he grew, we realized, and I agree with what Teresa said, that, the kid has to want it. And this is one thing, a lot of tennis parents ask me, how is your kid persisting? Because of all the kids, top juniors who were with him in India, 99% have dropped out. I don't know where they are today. He's at least persisting. He's in the system. And the one thing I do say is that he wants it. And you can't play tennis and you can't play any sport if you don't want it. So I think that was something we realized over time. Luckily, we weren't attached to sport. I mean, we didn't, it was just like a little bonus that this thing came in our life. But I did see a lot of sports tennis parents who, one dad told me, I've saved money in the bank from before she was born so that she'll win a Grand Slam. I was like, oops. So the poor thing. I mean, the minute she was 18, she was like, I'm out of here. So I think the way we spoke to Adil also changed over the years. So initially it was about logistics and did you take your banana and so on. And then he started saying, guys, I've got my banana. And if I don't have my banana, I don't want my banana. And I think as a parent, basically you have to learn this. To zip. And I think learning to zip, it takes a lot of kind of introspection and realizing that many times we are advising because we think we're being helpful. But learning not to say anything is an art in itself. So Lord Buddha? So we practiced that, I think, and that took many years. So even at a tournament, and I think to your point about, moms giving emotional and fathers giving technical, it is, I don't know if it's gender, but I would say parents tend to think they're the coach. So I'd be like, why don't you do 20 more service practices? He's like, my shoulder's hurting today. So we realized we need to stop being the coach and continue being the parent. Right. And I think that, letting the coach do what they're doing and not saying a word in practice, not saying much. So I would ask him before a match, Adil, what do you want me to do? He said, just clap for a good shot. That's it. And when you're watching, your leg is moving. So I actually practice this. Where you tie your legs up while you're watching the match, because it's just an instinct when your kid is playing. So, and then you tend to also take do this, that when you're watching, when that shot goes out. So I had to just be like, again. So I think asking him what we could do helped. And that helped us evolve, because he would say, don't tell me anything on court, and if, just clap. After the match, we learned to say nothing. But we also learned that we had to continue to show, and we would show love. So if he loses a match, he will come towards us, and I would always notice the other Indian parents watching, what's going to happen now? He's lost his match. Top seed has lost to no seed. So as he would come, a hug, a kiss, and say, let's go. And you know, I think in India, it's very difficult when you lose. Everybody loves a winner. So when he would win, everyone's like, very good, very good. When he would lose, it's like nobody talks to you. So you are like walking off. All the parents, it's like the sea, you know, Moses and the sea parts. Everybody moves aside and lets you walk through. And they don't say a word. And, you know, I have always, so I as a tennis mom and friend to all his friends, I always, when they lose, I say, well played, you're on the right path, keep going for it. Because I remember all those times Adil lost and nobody talks to you. So we would make sure we were there to just, you know, hug him, walk out with him, sit with him while he cools off, not say a word, get in the car, say, where should we go for lunch, and change the topic. Because the last thing they want is you telling them, you know, on that point you should have done this and done that. And, you know, they already know that, okay, something didn't go right during the match. So I think learning as a sports parent, one, to not say too much, what to say, when to say, how to say, when not to say, is a journey in evolution. And I really do feel that, you know, sessions such as this are very important for sports parents because they don't know. We didn't know when we started. You know, you think when you're on the court telling you, come on, next one, do it, you can do it. They may not like it. He used to say, it distracts me, you know, when you're saying all that. So we learned, I think we evolved over time. But I think asking the kid, we asked Adil a lot. I still ask him. I asked him, you want us to come to KSLTA today or not? He said, please come. So, you know, just asking. If he says, I feel like, don't come, I'm not playing very well, generally they don't want, he didn't want us around when he felt he wasn't playing very well or he was not in a mental state to give his best, he kind of didn't want us around. So if he says, you know, don't come for the match, we won't go. Arjun gets a little more nervous than me. So he sits like 200 meters away from the tennis court. I have learned to just like be the Buddha. So I think every parent has to kind of figure out how they want to, you know. But I think asking the athlete really helps.
I think you have a book in you, Buddhist Sports Parenting, but also a really lovely reflection because actually at a conference a couple of years ago at the Prakash Padukone Badminton Academy, Rahul Dravid was reflecting on this and he talks about the drive home from a match, the 30-minute or 45-minute drive home after a match. And it's, what is your opening line? Is your opening line, did you win, did you lose, why did you win, why did you lose? Or do you change the topic? Or just normalizing winning, losing, and asking, did you have fun? So much of it is in the language that you use, and because kids are watching, and kids are bound to want affirmation of different sorts. So a wonderful reflection there.
Sorry, I want to add one point on that, Nandan, just before I forget that thought. That, you know, many times as parents, we get so invested in the journey because perhaps we've given up our jobs, our money, our life, that we see the kids' success as our success, right? And they actually feel it. And so when they're not doing well, they in some way feel like they've let the parent down. When, you know, and I always wondered with Adil when he wasn't doing well, my friends are psychologists, they're saying maybe kids of, you know, successful parents have issues with success. I said, I never saw that as a junior. I don't think we are the problem. So when your kid's not doing well, the parent also wonders if they're the problem. The kid also, you're wondering, you know, the kid is wondering, are my parents thinking I'm the problem? So I think letting them go, again to the Buddhist. So during COVID, he told us, I don't want to play. I don't want to be an athlete. I'll go do my bachelor's, master's. And we said, okay. And immediately we started talking. I said, you'd be so good with digital marketing because he raps for impact. I said, you know, you can work and grow that. And we kind of stopped discussing tennis. And a couple of weeks later, he told me, so you really don't care if I play or not? So I said, why? You thought I was just saying it? He said, no, I wasn't sure, but now I'm sure. It doesn't matter to you. And I think for a kid, they must know that number one, their parent loves them irrespective of the sport, irrespective of the result. And I think that is, maybe it's the Buddhist, maybe we'll do a joint book together.
Yeah. You mentioned the 6-month rule. I think he took you through a 2-week rule. Did you really care or not? But if we can come to you and talking through, you know, the journey where you went, I would say you went all in, and your parenting language was sporting language. How did you manage that relationship where I think your primary way of dealing with your children was at the swimming pool, through providing emotional, practical. How did you avoid this trap of feeling judged by their performances and manage your own emotions, which is a large part of what we're talking about?
First, what you said was correct. I think all life skills for my children were taught at the swimming pool. I mean, they learned at the swimming pool. That's point number one. Each, like her child is different, her child is different. I have two kids and both my kids are so different. My daughter was one of those role model kind of children who did what the coach wanted her to do, did what the parent wanted her to do, that kind. But as my son, after some time, said that he also won a national gold. But then he wanted to get those 99.9% in 10th standard. So he gave up. By the time he was in the 9th standard, he said, no, enough of swimming. I want to focus on my studies. So we let him be. I mean, we thought, because managing swimming and studies at that level is very tough. I mean, you can. I mean, Meghana did manage, but it was float around. But so he gave up, and then he took the academic route. So you have to choose. Each child is different. There is no hard and fast rule for everybody. With my two children itself were so different in the pool, out of the pool. But one thing was, I said that I kept them away from the politics of the sport. I let them focus 100% only in the water. We had full trust in the coach and let the coach do his job. I did my job as he decided when to do, when it was tapering, when it was high workout session, all that was his job. My job was to feed accordingly, when to give carbohydrate, when to give protein. That was my job, and give that emotional quotient, help in that emotional quotient for the child. Because the child is finally, they are 14 years old, they are 13 years old. So they have to be, of course, always told that winning is not everything. There is a lot more to it. And today my daughter says, you knew when to push and when not to push. Because she has a daughter now who also, because she's been such a sports person, so she is hoping that her child will also go. And she's already into riding. So I think each child you have to deal with differently.
So, but I'm interested in this. So what happened? So at some point, all athletes end their careers. You can call it dropout, you can call it end of a career. How did your relationship with your kids evolve after they stopped swimming, both of them? So because like in many ways, the primary relationship was with swimming. So suddenly there was no swimming. You didn't have to go to the pool. You didn't have to prepare.
I was equally involved in what they did after that. I was equally involved whether they were whether she was doing her second BA at Oxford or whether she was getting into McKinsey. And she said, "No, I'm aiming at Harvard." I said, are you going to do the first? What is that? Early decision, or you're going to do apply later?
So you got deep into that.
I was fully involved equally involved as a sports mother. I was involved in their, till they earned their first $100 and asked where to invest.
Then it goes over to the other place. But I think that there are practical challenges we all face, financial challenges. Not everyone has ready finances to fund an unlimited set of opportunities. There's also research which suggests that 13 years is when a lot of kids drop out, they just stop enjoying what they're doing. Clearly, all three of yours didn't reach that point, but a large driver of that is actually parental pressure and coaches' pressure. In many ways, coaches wanting you to win while you want to have fun, parents, in some sense, reflecting their ambitions, and also just the challenges of academics. You've approached it, Teresa, in a very different way, taking your child outside the Indian situation. So you've removed an environmental factor. What went into that decision, number one? And two, how are you going to navigate the ecosystem of progression? Because if she's played for the India under-16 team, she might want to continue to play for India, but opportunities might be better elsewhere. So how are you navigating this? Do you have a bunch of advisors? Are you researching this? So a couple of questions in one.
So this year also she was called for the India under 17 trials. This happened in January. She was here on her Christmas break. But we took a informed decision that she can't be here because the camp was going to be for 4 months, which means that she's missing out on her lessons back in UK. And the other problem here was that they didn't know when the tournament is going to be. They just keep preparing a team, but we don't know if she'll play. So we took a decision that no, it's not worth the money, actually, more than anything, because it is very expensive to have her go to school there. So we took a call that, okay, let her not go this year, because they don't even know if there's a tournament. And progression-wise, the school helps. The school that she's in helps with, if she doesn't make it, we are hoping that she gets picked up by some club in UK. But if that doesn't happen, then the school actually helps with getting scholarships to universities in the US. That's what, because women's football is better in the US than it is in UK. So, and at university level in the US, they also pay them to play. So that's actually what, that's the plan B. Plan A is that she gets into a club there.
Wonderful. So you've, in some sense, navigated a system by almost having to exit a system. Right. Dr. Sunita, obviously tennis is slightly different, slightly less dependent on a federation and all of its complexities. But do you ever worry about sort of the longer term future and this balancing between academics and sport? You said 10 standard was a must, 12 standard was a must. But what about after that? Is sports itself the education that you as parents are comfortable with in this milieu? How do you think about the longer term? Does it worry you? Does it, you're confident that sport has given him what he needs?
It used to worry. I would say we used to worry a lot, especially because we are just like academic, dung. And sports is very uncertain. Are you going to be able to make a career of it, and so on. We knew that the life lessons you would definitely get. So after 12th NIOS, a lot of the kids go to US college. And personally, we felt it's a very, very good option. So we started talking to Adil about that. He was very closed and he did not tell us. He had offers from Duke, from Cornell. I don't even know. All these coaches were messaging him on Facebook. He didn't share with us. So one day a friend of his who was joining University of Miami came and started talking about this University of Miami. And then Adil's like, yeah, there's some place called Cornell. I'm like, Adil, that's Ivy League. Another place called Duke. I was like, you didn't tell us. So he didn't want to go. And we felt he really would have, should have gone to the US and been in that US system. Looking back, maybe it was the right decision for him not to go, because if he had had a lot of injuries there, he may have just, fallen off the tennis track at least. So that was a decision he took. At this point, again, we stepped in as parents and I said, okay, Adil, if you're not going to US college and you want to do tennis, fine, please get a bachelor's. So, and India does have an ecosystem, at least to get these, the degrees that you can keep in your notebook. So he joined Jain school and didn't attend one class. Didn't even get the books, I think, for 3 years. But they were very supportive, and he played for Jain. You have to just play for the college, and you can take the exam. So he got a bachelor's. He's even signed up for a master's at Jain. Now that this is on his own. PhD. After bachelor's, I said, you're done. I'm fine. You don't have to get an education. I said, just get the chap for the future. Now, in terms of, now do we worry? I would say no. Because if you meet this kid, you would think he's gone to Harvard. He knows everything. And a lot of people used to ask him, which school are you in? And he says, I'm in the school of life. And some people have even said, what's the address? Where is the school? So I think to, your point, they just learn so much and they're so smart and street savvy. He's taught himself this rap making all on his own. Taught him he could be a great digital marketer. He could do anything. So today we don't worry. But I do feel that's because he's sort of shown that he has this plan B, that he has these other tools, other things, and he will always be able to use his sport in that. So I think helping them with a plan B gently is also very important as a parent. If you call it plan B, he would get angry. When I said US college, he would say, so you think I can't make it in tennis, so you're telling me to go to US college. So, that language. So I would just say, you have many skills. When you're not playing tennis, maybe you want to hone this skill, Put it in a way that they're not feeling like you're saying, we don't think you can do it in tennis, so you should do this. But gently guiding. I have him listen in on investments and discussions of our company. I teach him about finance, just without him even realizing that there's this other kind of things and tools that we're giving him for life later.
Wonderful. I see a future co-author of Mother Son in Sport. But just ending this panel with you, Raji, how do you reflect on this? Were there points at which you really worried on the academic front? Obviously, you've ended up with good outcomes here. But sometimes sports and academics can't be balanced in the same way that you would want them to. Were there worries? How did you balance them at the key moments of exams, on admissions, and other things like that?
Yeah, also at that time, so 20 years back, there was a sport like swimming. There was nothing like, there was no future as a career at that time that we could think. Nisha has changed that now. But so I always used to say you have to be, you don't have to come first in class in school, but you have to be able to go from this platform to that platform. So you have to, because the coaches always said, for the school, of course, school supported her a lot. They used to, really give me all the lessons, and I used to do flashcards and praise out of that, and that was all the time that she had to study. But because for the coach, he used to say, it is glucose depletion if you're studying. So no doing school homework or anything like that. So what I'm saying is, so you had to see that there is a way where they can transition from this stage to the other stage. So that's what happened with Meghana. Nakul, of course, decided, now this is over and I take on to studies. But Meghana she swam up till her engineering college. She managed on engineering. Of course, we couldn't send her out because she was swimming still here. She only did some swimming programs outside. She went to Germany and swam with the German Olympic team and trained abroad for a little bit. But otherwise, she stayed here. Those days, so many opportunities were not there.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I have a journey ahead as a sports parent, so I know at least 3 people to come to. You'll be getting a lot of calls. Thank you. We will have you back for the Q&A after this panel. Thank you.
ये पागल ही होंगे, नहीं तो 24 में से 18 घंटे सेम चीज। वही मेहनत, कोई देखे या ना देखे। कोई फैंस नहीं, कोई एडवर्टाइजिंग कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं। बेवकूफ हैं ये। इनको तो ये भी पता नहीं कि डिस्को में लेटेस्ट हिट गाना कौन सा है। इनको शायद ये भी नहीं पता कि डिस्को है क्या। इनके लिए तो हर स्टेडियम डिस्को। और जब देखो सिर्फ एक ही गाना सुनना है, सारे जहां से अच्छा हिंदुस्तान हमारा। दीवाने हैं ये, करोड़ों लोगों के सपने अपने कंधे पे लिए क्यों चल पड़े? ना स्टाइल मारना जानते हैं, ना कपड़े पहनने का शौक है। अपने तन पे तिरंगा पहनने का जुनून है। इसे पागलपन कहें, बेवकूफी या कुछ और, इनमें से कुछ ही हैं जो करोड़ों में से हमारे देश को ओलंपिक्स में रिप्रेजेंट कर रहे हैं। ये लोग यहां तक पहुंच गए, वो भी अकेले। अब आगे के सफर के लिए इन्हें चाहिए बस एक एहसास, कि वो अकेले नहीं है, हम भी हैं उनके साथ। तो आइए इनका हौसला बढ़ाएं, दुआएं मांगे, प्रार्थना करें। इन पागल और बेवकूफों की कोशिशों को कामयाबी में बदलना हम सबके हाथों में है।
So these are people who've been there, done that, played for the country, worked with people who are playing for the country. So we're going to hear the other side of the sports parenting debate. You've been, Nisha, if I can start with you, you've been athlete, you've had parents who've gone to a huge extent to allow you to be an athlete and to support you, and now you're a sports parent and coach yourself. So when you reflect on the journey, I mean, you look at, first of all, what did your parents do to enable your career? And what did it do for you in terms of the early stages?
I would say I think the best gift my parents gave me was I learned to swim at the age of 9, which is comparatively late to some of the other kids that I was competing with. I had tried badminton, gymnastics, never really liked the sport or felt passionate about it. And when I got into the pool, it wasn't one of those fairy tale stories. I actually struggled because I had a big fear of water. I had hydrophobia. I had nearly drowned as a kid. So it wasn't smooth sailing, but something about the water. I think my dad getting me involved with water, being there with me through those teaching years. And once I got into a team, that's when things changed. I wanted to beat everyone. I wanted to beat the boys, beat the girls. And I had chicken pox in my first month. And I joined the team and I got chicken pox. And I was like, I want to swim. He said, no, you can't. It's contagious, you know. So I would, run up steps, start running up 10 floors just to keep my fitness. And then 1992 Barcelona Olympics. In those days, DD Sports, which is all we'd watch, with some very suspect commentary. And I watched all the Olympic champions swim, and I just said, this is what I want to do. I was so clear, and I think the best gift my parents could give me was not laugh at me. I was a skinny 10-year-old kid. I had hardly been swimming a year. I think maybe I had won a few small competitions. And they said, sure, if you're willing to put in the work, so are we. My sister was at the point where she came to swim only because she had very bad asthma. So it was there more to help her health-wise. And that was it. Once they said, we'll do whatever it takes, all the moms who were just on the panel talked about how the kid has to want it. I was that kid who would say, sit in the car and press the honk, probably wake up all our neighbors because dad is taking 5 minutes too long to get out, and I'd be late for class. So I really wanted it. And it doesn't happen that easily I think my sister was very different to me, and I see that now when I have twins, so the exact same age, height, weight, but there's such different personalities, and we're talking about this. So I think being a sports person is so much easier than being a sports parent. That's the one takeaway. I think what my parents did was really from being non-sports people themselves. I think as a sports person, I know what's needed. I've had that experience before. But for my parents, neither of them were competitive athletes. They were sporty. My dad boxed. My mom played table tennis. But none of them got even to a state level. So this is totally new from them. They just, like you said, talked about research. They talked to all the parents of the pool, people who had more than them. I'm sure Auntie Raji got peppered with a million questions for my parents, or Shravan, a good friend of mine, his mom, Auntie Indra. They just learned from other parents, and they did the best that they could, to the point where they actually sold our house at one point and put that entire 50, 60 lakhs into my swimming career. So really they went that next level. They went above and beyond, and I keep asking them, what if I hadn't made it to the Olympics? They said, we still would have given it, we would have done the exact same thing. So if you look at it, the fact that they, in those days where there was absolutely no future in sports, they really trusted us. Again, both of them, I think, worked as a really good team. And they all talked about how they were the sports my mom was a sports nutritionist. She was the manager. Dad would be my sports psychologist and would fund all these, outings. And the two of them really worked together, so they had all the bases covered. And the first time I actually knew that, wow, you can have a support team or support staff working with you is when I went to Australia, when I was already trying to qualify for the Olympics. Then I had my own sports nutritionist, I had a biomechanics expert, I had sports physios, and at that point of time I was 18, so I realized, wow, my parents have been filling all these roles for so many years. And in those days, there wasn't even the internet. I mean, just about, we had a little old computer and they would Google things. But it was just learning from others, reading books. My dad would, beg some relative coming down, like, please, can you bring us the latest Speedo swimsuits and can you find any books on swimming? Competitive swimming. So he got one from Mark Spitz, I remember, got something called The Science of Swimming. And so he just educated himself. So I think that's very important. One thing is, yes, to let the coaches do their job as well, but also to understand the sport that your child is in. Because it's so different, I think. If you had two kids in different sports, I have a few parents who are at my team. One kid's in swimming, the other one's in football. And she says it's so different. So I think you have to educate where you know enough about it. So my dad would actually make me watch videos, make me watch, those old VHS tapes. And he would say, look at that swimmer. Can you make out any mistakes? And then when I would start pointing out, he said, yeah, you're right. So why don't you look at your own stroke when you're swimming? Or look at your competitors. So I remember Meghna, since Auntie Raji is here, I'll tell her about Meghna and me were good friends, but also fierce rivals in the long distance events. And Meghna would only breathe to one side. So I watched her during heats and I'd be like, okay, so Meghna breathes to her left. So whenever she's breathing to her left and she's breathing away from me, I'm going to go really fast. So when we do the flip turn, Meghna can't see. She's like, oh my God, how did Nisha just get ahead of me? And then there's a little bit of panic, So I think what my dad taught me was one, to kind of learn what I'm doing, watch others, and swimming is a sport where also I think strategy is very important, how you race. So he really taught me to be a thinking swimmer, which nobody would do. In those days, they'd be like, okay, do your workout, go home. So he would, talk to us. It became like a swimming family. The entire family would talk about swimming. We're very passionate about it. But of course, that comes with challenges. So when you decide to quit the sport, it becomes like you were talking to Auntie Raji, what happened after. But really, I'm just blessed to have parents who blindly just followed my dreams and said, we'll give it everything we had. And in a way, lucky that my sister was also a swimmer, because you always have that person and you're like, oh my God, I can't even walk up the stairs. She's like, yeah, my legs hurt too. Or, you have a really bad swim meet, you're there for each other. So it helped to have that little bubble of support in my own family.
And how has it been different on the other side? Your sports parent.
Yeah.
What are the things you're repeating that your parents did, and what are the things you're not repeating which your parents did?
So I think, of course, I got to skip all the mistakes that they made, right? So I'm like, okay, this is what they did wrong with me, so let me not do that. But one thing that I always do, which they did very well, was, like all the parents sitting out here, say that you are doing this for yourself. And for me, it's easy because I said, listen, I've been to the Olympics. I've lived out my dream. I've done that. Don't swim for me. It was very clear, even for them to pick the sport. It was like, if you want to go to practice in the morning, it's up to you. I've been there, I've done that. I can give you all the gyan I've learned over so many years. And they don't listen to most of my gyan, by the way. When their friends ask them, like Anushka, little Anushka is sitting here, if she had to ask me a question, then they'd come like, oh, what is she telling Anushka? But if I tell them, they're like, oh, okay, mom, we know, you're an Olympian, But the good thing with them is the belief is there, because they're like, my mom made it to the Olympics, dude. Like, it can't be that hard, So I think it helps, right? I know when I was swimming in Australia and I'm swimming next to world champions, you realize they're just human beings, maybe a little tougher, stronger, mentally, physically stronger. So for them, the belief is, look, my daughter wrote a wonderful, not so wonderful for me, but I must tell you, I think after doing a course in psychology, I can take this a little better. But I was in Goa with some of our team. I'd taken them for the Goa Swimathon. And my husband was managing my kids. And he's not a sports person himself. He does a great job. But at the same time, there's a little bit, more that I can do maybe for them. So I get a written letter from her journal. I get a screenshot to say, my parents are mean. My mom has gone to Goa with the rest of her swimming kids, okay? While I am here stuck with dad who's torturing me with Kannada, okay? And tomorrow morning, my sister has a very bad cough, so she doesn't want to go to the pool. And so my dad says, why don't you also sleep in? Because he has a stupid table tennis tournament that he wants to play, okay? And mom is reaching back from Goa at 11:30 in the night, so who knows if she'll be in a state to take me for practice in the morning. Michael Phelps went 5 years without missing a single practice, and that's why he's the greatest Olympian ever. At the end, it says, I hate my parents. So yeah, to say it's challenging is another thing altogether. So then I had to write to her saying, hey, I never said I won't take you. If your sister's not well, she'll sleep in. And I am used to, sleeping very little. We'll go to the pool. Then before that, I got about 40 angry faces. After I got 40 smiley faces, like, okay, you've made it okay. And she got up this morning, she was very chirpy. And then I said, what was that all about? She's like, I just had to vent because I was really stressed, So I think kids are a lot more emotionally mature than we were. I don't think I got a chance to vent too much. I remember doing something called crogling, where I would cry into my goggles. We'd call it crogling. But now kids are so mature. So I think, like you mentioned, asking them, it's very different now. I feel that there's so much more of a dialogue that I can have with my kids, even at the age of 11, 12. And that's how I go about it right now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nisha. Sujit, if I may come to you, and I want to start with a story. I was a young cricketer myself, age 15. Had just played well for the under-16 state team. And then I end up getting selected, to my own surprise, for the state under-21 team. And I turn up and Sujit is the captain there. Now, very intimidating for a young person, 15, 16, to be in senior company, people already playing the Ranji Trophy or almost there. But Sujit was one person who actually looked at it differently. There were a couple of people in the team probably wondering why this kid has made it to this team. But there was Sujit and one other person who I very distinctly remember having this just natural tendency to mentor and to see the best in a young person. And I think that's a career, Sujit, you've continued. What motivated you to work in cricket education? You worked in corporate training, you worked with young golfers as well. What was the trigger? I mean, you played at the absolutely highest level. I mean, anyone in the country would die to have this photo of you, and you opened the batting with Sachin Tendulkar. But you've traversed a pretty unique journey.
Yeah, I remember you in the team, Nandan, you were really big even then. Even though you had that baby face, I remember that, and you had those intelligent questions for a young boy. See, being in South India, the parents always paid that importance to education. I mean, those were the days where education came first, and sports just happened. I would say that happened to me. It was an organic thing that I got into sport because I was in school. There were a lot of activities. I was into everything. I was the third in the family. I guess my parents had their fair share of learning, making mistakes, so they let me be. So I was more outdoorish, playing a lot of sports. But academic was something that they insisted on. So I had that academic bent of mind because my sisters both were also a doctor and an engineer. That helped. So this is to the question that you had about getting into education and all of that. So I had education as a part of my sports career and growing up. So I did my engineering, did all of that. So after sport, I had an option. When I retired from first class cricket, since I had my engineering degree, I had also done my MBA. I don't know, even Rahul and me both, Dravid and me both got into the MBA program together. Of course, he had more of matches to play for India. He couldn't complete it. So I did that. And it gave me an option to work in a corporate environment. So I worked there, then I moved into what interested me was the training and the learning and development of the company. I was in branding, but I moved there and I worked there. And before that, even before that, when I played for India, this is the time when I realized that skill alone wouldn't help, because people always told me that you're very skillful, you're very good and all that. But in the level at which you have to perform, there's a lot of other things, other factors like pressure, etc. So that interested me, in fact, to understand what goes on in the head and how do you overcome that. So I did all of that research. I did my education in sports psychology a bit. So that also got me into that field because it's very interesting, and I could see a lot of people, like Nisha says, when you see other people making mistakes, when you're also thinking and reflecting, you could see the same thing in others. And I felt like I can help enough other people in that. We didn't have people guiding us, mentoring us. Now it's all there. So that's why I got into it. And it kind of was a natural transition for me, which I enjoyed. And what I enjoyed most was when I could see that somebody is struggling with something that I did struggle with, And if I could help them, it really, was very fulfilling for me. So that's why I naturally went into this. And BCCI, NCA, I mean, that was a role that was supposed to be filled up, and luckily I got into that, and I'm enjoying that area.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sujit. And Dr. Sanjana, you are absolutely at the front end of global high performance, dealing with this type of pressure almost every day. We were having a conversation a little bit earlier. You were saying that every single athlete is under tremendous amounts of pressure. The fact that they have reached there means that they are quite unusual to start with, but they're also dealing with unusual challenges. How do you place the pressure load on young athletes at the highest level? We saw even this video. It's the pressure of a nation almost. It's not just your parents and the sacrifices they've made. What is the day-to-day for you with your clients? I understand that you cannot talk about specifics, but at a general level, your learnings from across the world, working with Olympians, Paralympians from multiple countries.
So first of all, Nisha and Sujit, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for doing all that you do. So the fact is, pressure is going to be there because this is competitive sport. This is not recreational. But then more than often when children get started with sport, they do that for fun, for the joy of it. So the commitment is based on the pleasant experiences they get out of it. And unfortunately or fortunately for them, because I've seen both, when they become the star performers, then there's an expectation of them. And gradually that expectation kind of seeps inside of them as well. So that is when their journey of stress and strain gets started. Earlier we heard the parents talk about how it's very important, and also you, Nisha, for the athlete, for the player to love what they do. Now, the more they love what they do, the more passionate they are about. They ask a lot of themselves as well, right? It's not just the significant others and the world. So every training, from the time they become aware of their position, becomes traumatic, Even happy stress causes a lot of strain. So that's there. That, and then for almost all of them, once they get to the top is when they realize that the journey to the top was the easiest than maintaining the top. So this is a story of any athlete, at least the ones I've come with from every part of the world. So stress is going to be there. Now it's about helping them understand that you normalize it, but you don't normalize it to a point that you're okay with the trauma of it. You want to be okay with the fact that there is going to be stress, but you also need to understand and find that joy and pleasantness in it. Because that then decides how long you go, that then decides, do you burn out? So what I've seen is the reason of commitment decides how much of stress you go through. Stress is going to be there, right? And the bigger the stage, the more the strain, the more the stress. So if your commitment is because you're entrapped, let's say you feel like, my parents have spent so much, the organization has spent so much, my sponsors, the government, I've given my life to it, you see. And more than often what you also see is their self-worth and self-value is attached to the outcomes of these performances. And this becomes much more dangerous when there's significant others, like the parents, the coaches, also align their self-worth and self-value to the outcomes of these endeavors, like, you were sharing about. So it really depends on whether your commitment is because of entrapment or your commitment is through all the stress and strain, you're still enjoying. So it's about understanding the human in the performer. So most of us, including the sports science, sports medicine staff, the parents, the ecosystem, our relationship is with the performer. And more than often, we either unintentionally, in most cases, have overlooked developing that relationship with the human behind the performer. So if we start, and the athletes themselves too, most of them are not aware of who they are, what is that they wanted. You know, when I work with, somehow, not by design, but through word of mouth, the applications that come to me are the ones looking to podium finish, and they do reach there. But then I really have to get them started on a journey of self-discovering themselves. What was the initial motivation when they started? What is that they like? What is that they have in life they look forward to other than sport, right? And also in some cases, getting them started with education or hobbies, not so much for a future, yes, that's going to help you apply yourself better, do something about it, but to keep yourself busy. Because the higher you go up the rung, you become an overthinker. Again, not because you choose to do that, because now the little nuances become very important for you. And you have to put in that thought. But too much of thinking can be detrimental because it gets you mentally exhausted. And when you're mentally exhausted and when your brain centers are fired, you get into deep sleep later, you wake up not so fresh. Then, your hand, mind, body coordination is a little off. You're not well rested, you're not aware, and you're not happy with your training. So it becomes a vicious cycle, right? And then most sports injuries, in fact, are related to stress and strain. You see? Because when you're stressed, because you're very happy or whether you're very upset, our brain can't tell the difference whether this individual is happy stressed or unhappy stressed. It's gonna kind of trigger a mechanism to save you because it registers, emergency. So there are a lot of physical changes, biochemical changes, you see. And your muscles are also tight. Your pupils actually dilate and you physically can't see clearly. So that is when your timing is off, you might ram into someone, you could put a wrong step. In the case of a tennis player, you might just step on the ball, you see. And because your muscles are tight, you overstretch them a little bit. That is where the wear and tear also kind of gives in. So I can go on and on about this topic actually, but then it is gonna be there. But it depends on to what extent do we normalize it. Because unfortunately what's happened in the high performance industry is it's normalized so much that if you're not stressed, everyone around you is worried. They're like, how can you be so calm? But then, and also, the representation of stress is so misunderstood. Because you're calm and quiet does not mean you're not stressed. And you might not be showing it. And athletes are very good at acting because they are expected to be brave, they're expected to show a strong front. So they're kind of very careful in not showing it. And if they show it, obviously, then opponents in a tennis match could take it to their advantage, right? So also that, and also to, know and understand that to be an athlete at a high-performing level, you should be a very, very emotionally sensitive person. So it's the opposite. Athletes are very, very emotionally sensitive, and only such people make it to the top. And because they're emotionally sensitive, everything touches them, good and bad. And that's why when there's a lull, when you don't do well, perhaps the people around don't know what to say. Perhaps some of them are celebrating that you didn't do well. Because as much as we kind of hail our heroes, unfortunately for us, as human beings, we also, kind of get this, I don't know what to call it, I don't have the right word, but we feel good when someone falls. Maybe it gives hope to another person. I don't know what that explanation is, sadly. And especially in today's day and culture, where there is cancel culture, where there's trolling, and when there are a lot of people, young and old, who have a lot of time. So the highs and lows is what excites you. You see it in the movies too. So understanding that human behind the performer, for the athletes themselves and for the others, will be helpful, I think. But emotions, they are going to be. Yeah.
Isha, if I may come to you, thank you, Dr. Sanjana. Parent-coach relationships. So I think there's allocation of responsibility. Is there a challenge you face from parents wanting to do too much, not doing enough?
I think we get the whole spectrum. In a team, I have a wide variety of parents. I have those who, like we have one parent in our team, his daughter was a preemie. So from a very young age, he's wanted to be there and handhold her, and he has some serious health issues, so he wants to make sure he can do everything possible. So the middle of class, she's just getting ready to take off, and he'd be like, drink some water, and we had to sit and talk to him and say, and she had to say, like, Dad, you're annoying me. Like, sometimes she would say this, Dad, stop, you're really annoying me. But it came from a good place. So as since I run the program, but I've also, coached or taught before, we had to sit down with him and say, listen, we've got it covered. We understand where you're coming from. Yes, I said, listen, my kids don't drink water. So he's like, so what do you do to get them to drink their hydration, So I'm like, I actually tell them 10 rupees a day to drink your hydration, because they're still in that hand-holding, are you eating your banana stage, right? They're just 11 years old, they've just started competing. So I'm like, I have to do what it takes. And if this is what it takes, so instead of saying, clean up your room, it's like, drink your hydration, you get 10 rupees per day, you get your pocket money at the end of the week. He's like, oh, that's a good idea. So it's like, it's, number one, you're distracting her from practice, and you're also kind of embarrassing her, because now they're getting to that stage where parents embarrass them all the time. Like Anushka is smiling already. She knows what I mean, right, Anushka? And then, of course, we get parents who are well-meaning and who leave everything up to us. But I think even for them, it's sometimes one or two parents. I have one or two elite athletes in our team where they're older now. They've been doing this for a while. And I don't think they've had that discussion with their daughter saying, would you like us to be there? Like, that's why I love what you do, even though he's in his 20s, and you're asking him, would you like me to be there? This girl would always come and say, my parents are really busy, I get that, but I would love for them to come, at least at a big swim meet or a important day, or maybe once a month. And she has a younger sister, so they tend to say, listen, your sister's younger, I need to be with her, which is understandable, but she feels like, I would like that support also, because like you said, there's stress all the time. Even training, and managing school is such a big stress for kids. So I think, like my husband would sometimes say, listen, the kids are old enough, we have a car and driver, why are you accompanying them to the pool all the time? You have enough work. And I'd say, listen, if I have a big meeting, if there's something important, I won't go. But it's also important for them to know, so middle of workout, they look at me and they'll just smile, and I give them a smile back. And that's sometimes what it takes. That's all you have to do. And also, like you said, learning to shut up, because, I've been there and I've done that, and I've tried that route, like, Mom, everything hurts. Yeah, I know, I've been there, done that. I used to swim more than you, so that doesn't go down very well. And so even for me as a parent, as a sports parent, I have to kind of unlearn some of the things my parents did and realize my kids, first of all, are very different to how I was. And also, I think, like, we've brought them up to be more independent, to ask questions, to say no. So I was the type, like Auntie Raj was talking about, Meghna, do this, you'll go fast. I was a good child, where in fact, to the other extreme, where we all think, I think it was very much of the 90s and the early 2000s, where we were taught that rest and relaxation was bad. We were not being productive. Only now you heard things, yeah, exactly, no pain, no gain, pain is weakness leaving your body. I can give you all these, And so,
glucose,
I think, even when I quit swimming, I didn't understand this till I did my counseling course. Now, I did the counseling course because not to be a counselor, but I talked to so many young athletes. So I wanted to make sure, like you said, I'm talking, and I didn't do a sports psychology course, I did a counseling course. So like you said, I think the athlete and who they are as individuals, and I could deal with them. But I had ended up actually helping myself more than I think I will even help others, because my psychologist, my counselor, so every counselor has to have their own counselor, and she would say, like, Nisha, slow down. So this is me talking slowly, by the way. And I took 1 year of me trying to slow down my speech, and then she brought it back over many sessions to say, you're not, first of all, you're an athlete, and in a sport like swimming, it's about milliseconds, right? So every millisecond counts, and my parents were working parents. Everything would be like, come on, let's go, let's hurry, let's go. Everything was fast, I was rushed. So even my speech became such that I felt like I couldn't slow down, I couldn't relax. And when I talked to her about how much I enjoyed the COVID times, other people were having a tough time. It was a very tough time financially in terms of business. But I enjoyed it because I had no choice but to slow down with my kids. And one day when my kids said, Mom, this is the best time we've ever had, because we get you and Dad 24 hours to ourselves without any distractions. And then I'm realizing, wow, even I am the type who would never Netflix and chill or go and meet a friend. I'm like, no, I should be doing this. I should be working on my business. I should be a better parent. And so through this 1 year of counseling, I learned that it's okay to just relax. So even to the athletes that I teach, sometimes, even my own daughters, it was their best friend's birthday. And they were so excited, but they're like, but mom, it's the same time as practice. So I said, okay, you really want to go for it? I said, yeah. I said, it's your choice. I'm not, you're swimming for yourself to win medals. So if you would like to go for this, do it. They went for that, the birthday party. And the next day they were so charged up, like, oh, we missed yesterday, we're going to give it extra. And I feel that sometimes we don't give these kids a choice. They're so intelligent. And frankly, that one missed session means nothing.
Except that Michael Phelps never missed a
Yeah,
session.
exactly. But I think even Michael Phelps, obviously the greats are, you have to be crazy in some ways. You have to be obsessive, right? You heard, if you read Abhinav Bindra's book, he talks about the obsessive, relentless pursuit for excellence. Yes, that takes you, it takes you to that level, but also Michael Phelps has, and he openly talks about it, so many mental health issues, so many issues adjusting to life after that. So as a parent, not as a sports parent, but just as a parent, my only job right now with my kids is they're only 11. They need to realize that swimming is just one part of their life, an important part, but just one part. And again, I won't, and so I tell all the parents, we all discuss this and talk about how it is, again, about the process, all the skills they're learning. And at the end of the day, we still love them, whether they come first or last. And you don't want them when they end their swimming. I think the toughest point in an athlete's career is that transition from competitive athlete to a normal person or like a regular person. That's the toughest. So by teaching kids that you can talk about it, you can have other interests, it's not a big deal. Like we have so many kids in our team, they're only 11 or 12. They're not elite athletes yet. Some of them still doing ballet, still doing dance. And we encourage that because we never did that. There were so many things I would have loved to. I literally have no other skills. I didn't even learn how to drive a car because I was so focused. And sure, it got me to the Olympics. But now if I'm at 5 a.m. in the morning, I have 2 cars in my house and I'm not driving. I just miss those years. So I feel like we need to have a more well-balanced environment because mental health comes so much into play and things are very different from when I was competing. There's social media, there's so much of pressure. So as a parent, all I do is they have to have other interests and swimming isn't everything. Sports isn't everything. It's amazing, but it's an amazing thing to have in your life, but it cannot be your entire existence and your sense of identity.
Wonderful. And sure, please.
So you talked about athletes obsessing. Yeah. I've seen parents obsessive too, and parents' mental health, their broken marriages, the relationship between them and the child is not great, not because they were kind of removed in that equation because they were over-involved, right? And this is a real crisis. Since we are talking about parents, I'll focus on that. There's so many coaches who are mentally ill too, owing to these obsessive. But then that's what happens because you start out with passion, but then, like you said, these people must be crazy. They have to be extraordinary. They have to be different to be chasing the same thing again and again and again and over again. And when it's tough to tell when passion quietly moved into obsession. And this is also when your positive perfectionism, where you want to be your best at what you do, and you're celebrating your successes, now gradually moves into negative perfectionism, where it's never enough, even for yourself. Although most of the athletes I work with also have clinical psychologists working with them, and some are on psychiatric help. At the conclusion of an Olympics, for example, most of them go through emptiness, you see. They might be smiling for the cameras and doing the interviews and, doing all of that. But then inside, they feel empty. They go through the post-Olympic blues. It's not because the busyness around Olympic cycle has quietened, but it's also because they don't know why they're not feeling happy when they're supposed to be. And this is where the parents, and this happens to the parents too. It can happen with me. I need to keep a constant check at it. When some of my athletes don't make it to the podium, or worse, when they've not hit their personal best, of course, I'm a part of it too, because as a team we did it. So being consciously aware of that, obsession and negative perfectionism, it's not very easy. And to your point on taking up the counseling course to help your athlete and you having a counselor, I think it's important for parents also to talk to someone. It's very important. There's nothing wrong about it. And when you talk to someone and when you understand yourself, is also when you can provide for your child better.
You're not a,
There's
not a
this-
finished product
in
yourself.
India, there's
Yeah.
almost like the stigma attached to mental health. It's only about
Yeah.
if you have a problem, then you go. But before you have that problem, if you're already speaking to someone, I feel,
Yeah.
and you have so many people in the business of sports, it doesn't have to be a regular, so many
Yeah.
sports psychologists. So why is it only for
The sports
the
people,
sports
yeah.
people? Yeah, it's a
And
great
just
thing.
love and money and opportunities and sponsorships is not going to work. Because, what's the point when your child ends up broken, you end up broken? And the more and more I'm getting involved in high performance, sometimes I question, sports and high performance was about higher, stronger, faster together. But then what I see, and these, mind you, are the top 10 countries in the world, right? Most of who I work with, who have infrastructure, who have systems, who have help in place. But the amount of mental ill health I see and broken people, I wonder if this is how sports should be, you see. But then if I look at the histories and, their journeys, I know that if things started better when they were younger, then the outcome would have been so much more better. So just a little tweaks, in the grassroots stages.
And exactly that, Sujit, can you talk us a little bit about the journey you're going through on the education side? So cricket is almost like a jackpot sport now, right? You make it to the top 100 cricketers, you're made for life. But there's a huge drop-off after that. So maybe 300 or 400 are making a reasonable career. But there are going to be thousands and thousands of people, lakhs, playing the sport with aspiration, but are not going to make it. So how do you actually navigate that? One, the pressure of that, two, the realities, and knowing also when to stop, right? When to quit. There is good drop-off, which is the right people are dropping off at the right time without pushing aspirations which are never going to get met.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult balance to find. I mean, everything is about balance, right? Whether it is autonomy, whether it's discipline and control, and what we are talking about, hard work, and then rest. Everything is about that balance, about passion and obsession. Where is that balance? Where is that line? So I think cricket in India has a better percentage of success, I think, compared to other sports. If the other sports are 1%, maybe it's a little higher in cricket, because the number of opportunities that we have as cricketers, I was lucky to have played that game. But yeah, so see, one thing is, like all of you have already spoken about, it's about the player or the sportsman himself or herself. We need to give that autonomy. I think sometimes we as parents, we are well-meaning all the time. Of course, there's no question, there's no doubt about the place from where we operate as parents. I'm also a sports parent now. I have a 17-and-a-half-year-old son who is into sport. And I see so many mistakes. And Dr. Sunita was talking, and I was saying, I think she should write a book, like you said, Zen Parenting. And a lot of stuff that we as sports psychologists, we talk about to the parents. Sports parenting is one topic which I also looked at, because like Nisha has experienced parents being very intentional, but coming in the way of their kids' performance. So that is something that we as coaches keep watching. And so I'm into education, I'm into developing coaches. Like Sanjana just mentioned, even the coaches should understand how they are the cause of many kids going to sports psychologists, because the coaches themselves put so much pressure.
Don't take away our business.
I was thinking about it. If she's talking about don't go for medal, I mean, it's breaking people, then I'm saying, where is your existence then? I was just kidding. So now, these forums, I think you should have a lot more, because we don't want people not going for medals or high performance, but we might want the ecosystem to support it. I mean, that's what it is, right? So if a sports parent understands when to zip, what to say, what not to say, and what to question, what kind of questions, like Rahul mentioned, and I had the same experience, and I've made that mistake. because I myself have played the sport and I'm so invested in the game myself, and then I see that my son is invested so much. So his passion is his, it's not mine. His dreams, I can't, and sometimes I'm a failed international cricketer. I just played 3 games, right? So I catch myself when I say, oh, if my son actually goes on to play at the highest level, then I have succeeded in some way. I mean, that's the human tendency that we have. And as parents, we need to catch that and let go of that. And as coaches, like now I'm certifying and developing coaches, cricket coaches for every state. So I see that a lot of coaches have themselves played the sport. And for them, if they have one of their students make it, then I made it as a coach. So that also plays out.
And also, Sujit, a little bit of this early success, 13-year-old getting IPL contract, we want another Tendulkar. And actually, research suggests that is actually contrary to all other countries. The success actually, the most elite athletes have actually played more than one sport at a junior level. We push to early specialization, get there fast, get there early, get the resources, and then figure out your way through. I think cricket, it's natural to specialize in an early manner. Are you pushing people to play other sports? Are you, is there even that mentality coming through? Because the stats show so significantly, play a single sport, much higher risk of injury, much higher risk of stress, and much lower risk of international victory.
Yeah, part of the curriculum that I run for coaches, we also talk about early specialization and the perils of it, burnout and stress. And in fact, if you look at the natural tendency that we have as human beings, God actually has given that. When I was growing up, every season I used to play a different sport. For a reason, so that we develop holistically, every part of the muscle. But specialization robs us of developing holistically. Physically, I'm talking about now. Of course, holistic development is about the overall development, physical, mental, attitude, everything. But here, even in the physicality of things, you need to play different sports. That's something that I make a point of telling the coaches. So again, it's a balance. Now, if you don't practice or hit that many balls, you might not make it because every other kid is doing it. When I was growing up, I used to go to school. My dad always told me, when you're in school, you're a student. Only on the ground, you're a cricketer. But now, my son is doing NIOS. I think some of you spoke about it. It's a brilliant way to, pursue something. But I also tell him the importance, So as parents, how do we not interfere? And when do you take that call of stop interfering in deciding for them? Because I feel if I don't tell him, then I might be a bad parent. But why not let them fall and get up? But that's another balance. Now I can't think of him not making it at all, right? So then, oh shit, maybe I should have told. Yeah. No, I mean, also the fact that I can't see my child falling.
Because they take it upon themselves.
Yeah, exactly. So this is something very, very difficult, even though we know it's in the knowledge domain, but to put it into practice, it takes a lot of effort to catch oneself. And every time we want to communicate, every time you pass on your frustration or your upset to them, you catch yourself. And that's, I've failed many times myself, even though I know and I profess. So that's very difficult as sports parents because you're so emotionally invested. We need to probably step back a bit.
Thank you. And Dr. Sanjana, last word before we open it up to some Q&A. And yeah, so one, add to that, and two, very specific question. You talked about athletes as actors. How do you, as a professional, peel those layers of acting, and how can parents do that too?
So before I get to that, I might ask you that question again. I might get emotionally involved with this answer here. So you talked about how much is too much and where do we stop, right? What I've figured, also because since London 2012, 3 years into doing Olympics with athletes, what I saw is the age of the elite athlete had drastically dropped. So more than 50% of my athletes were children, 17 and less. And for Paris, out of 41, 26 were 16 and less of age, right? So their brain is also still developing, but in terms of technique, they're very quick to catch technique, and that's how brainy their brain is, while emotionally it's underdeveloped. So for those reasons also it's difficult to kind of have a child play different sports. That's also there. Now coming back to the parents, what is working for me for parents of these children, it has worked for me at least, is when I help them understand that they're not able to understand the difference between being supportive and overprotective, being supportive and telling them, leading them. So if they want their child to go fight out there on the field, then the child needs to be confident and stronger. So the more you involve in your parenting, you're telling the child that they're not capable, and that's why you're requiring to do this. So trusting them with what they need to do, and you can't be there all the time. You know, they have to learn skills. They have to navigate, right? So when we trust them, but also educate them on the dangers of the world very early in life. I'm an athlete parent too. So at the age of 12 and 13, when my son started traveling, and as tennis parent, I had to make money. I couldn't be traveling with them all the time. I had to tell them about birds and bees. I had to tell them about LGBTQI+. I had to tell them about there could be someone who is gay, and that could be normal for them. But when they get intimate with you with a conversation and you're not liking it, know that you're not. Because I've seen a lot of, individuals taking care of their physiological needs when they are, traveling together, right? And if it's a same gender kind of team, then they have to help themselves too, right? And also keeping in mind that people who enjoy sports come with a lot of, hormones, rushed hormones that are far beyond normal populations. And these are also children who do not understand the world as much as others do because they're just so focused with education. So helping the parents understand the benefit of them, engaging less, but educating them. And as Indian parents, we don't know how to be friends with our children because we are used to slapping our child, but also offering them food with the same hand, you see. So for us growing up, we had both at the same time, and it was balanced. But in today's day and age, you might shout and scream at them, but then they're gone with the coaches. You don't have that time to close the loop of love. So our ways of showing love have to change. And also respecting them, because today's young, especially the Gen Alpha, they're a very special alpha group, right? They're very righteous, they're very honest, they are, thought leaders. So, and they have a lot of potential to think deep. So respect and acceptance is very important for them. Also keeping in mind that if you don't respect your child, you're getting your child used to being disrespected. And your children are going to allow others to do that. It could be the coaches, it could be the sports scientists. Because it's an ecosystem which is producing champions does not mean that ecosystem is safe for your child. If a child is not made to feel good about themselves, especially when they lose, then this affects them throughout their life. So if we could help them understand. For me, I have the privilege and the luxury to have one-on-one conversations. If I were to put 100% to the work I do, a good 60% of my work is with the significant others and the coaches. Because if I have this covered, then I know the other 40% is enough for me to guide these children, right? So that's there.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences. It was amazing listening to all of you. I have two questions. One is on, we know how our child performs. We've seen them on multiple tournaments. We've seen them with their coaches. And when they take a step back, when they perform badly for just being maybe not careful enough, not focused enough, do we bring that to their attention and say, look, you can do better? we know this is, you know, that you're capable of doing better. It's not that we care about whether you get a medal or not, but you are capable of more. Do we help them realize that you know, there was a lack of focus? That's one question. The second one is, when we're playing competitively, there's a lot of bullying happening. There's a lot of politics behind the scenes, wherein children want to compete, but they want to compete negatively because the top 3 spots are super important. You make the squad if you're in the top 5. And there's a lot of gangism happening. A child like mine who's super mild, you know, sort of gets bullied, and her performance drops. Do we make her self-aware, show her what's happening around her, and just not, of course, be like others, but at least try to approach the referees when something wrong happens, make her aware, right? These are my 2 questions, please.
I would say, like you said, bullying is really strong. And I think also it's about the culture, and it starts with the club. So make sure that you as a parent, you as a sports unit are comfortable with the environment in your club. Now, I have swum in many different clubs, both in Australia and in India. And frankly, I prefer, I mean, even though I have some of my closest friends, and a lot of them are sitting in the audience today, Hakeem, Auntie Raji's daughter Meghna, Shravan, we all swam together, we're still very close. Still friends, and our kids are friends, and it's wonderful. But I also feel like things now are very different to what they were in the 90s. And it's a very competitive environment, and the words that they use are very harsh sometimes, you know. And first thing is to educate your own child. So do that. So for me, I always tell my kids, like, don't be that mean girl. You know, don't be that mean girl, whether it's in school, whether it's at the pool. You know, so a new kid joins, I'm like, take yourself back to when you had just joined. Our team is called the Marlins. So I'm like, take yourself back to day 1 when you were a Marlin, and you were the slowest, and you were starting right at the back. You know, now you might be leading the lane, but when a new kid comes, just go and introduce yourself. But also I think it comes from the coach and the program director, the way they're structuring the program. So with our academy, I know because when I went to Australia, it was very different. I went to America first. I really didn't like the environment. It's a very good club, one of the best clubs in America, but I felt very left out. I mean, it may not even have been the kids' fault. You know, I'm a 15-year-old Indian girl. Maybe my accent also was different to them. I had very few friends. Funnily enough, the one person who was very inclusive is somebody called Gary Hall Jr. His family, he's an Olympic champion, one of the fastest men in the world. His sister would come up to me and say, come home. You know, but I had literally one friend in my 5 months of training, and I was on my own, without my parents, without mobile phones in those days. So I found it so difficult. But when I went to Australia, I was older, I was 18, and I just loved the environment. My coach, the first day I said, good morning, sir, and he said, I'm not your boss, you know, call me Bernie. And he was 60 years old at the time. And just by calling him Bernie and not sir, it gave me that, yeah, he became my friend. He would pick me up, my mom and me up, to take us to practice because we didn't have transport. And I just loved that environment. So even today, if me or any of my coaches, if a kid comes up and says, Nisha or Venkat, you know, I encourage that. I say, they don't have to call you ma'am or sir. And also the environment that you create. So if you see there's that one bad apple, just go and talk to the parents saying, you know, your child has been, you know, saying something. Just educate. I think education is the most important. And I feel at a younger age, group sessions with a sports psychologist helps so much. So we don't do any one-on-ones unless the child or the parent or the family needs it. But we encourage these sessions, and it comes out, you know, when they're talking with their friends, they're able, and without their parents sometimes being there, I feel they're so open. Like a friend of mine, her daughter, she's a national champion, and her daughter had just started picking up the sport. And she says, you know, I feel like, we said, what are your fears? And she said, I feel like if I don't perform well, my mom won't love me. Now her mom's nothing like that. And her mom has been talking to me on a side note and saying, I'm so proud of her that she's able to get into competitive swimming, that she's pushing herself. Yes, she's not there yet, but you know, I'm happy she's on the way. She's in that process. But this child has just presumed that, okay, my mom was a national champion. I'm nowhere near that. I've not even won a state medal. Surely if I don't perform, she won't love me. You know, so I think we just have to, one, have a supportive environment and educate them from a very young age, whether it's at your home, in your academy. And so when they reach that national level where they are kind of thrown out, you know, into the wolves, you know, that's when I think it's really tough, and they already have that skill set to be able to deal with all this.
Sanjana, you want to add anything?
So I'll address your first question. I think, first of all, giving them the time for them to come to you. So that has to be an arrangement that has to be done before they go into the contest. That, that you will talk to them only when they are ready, right? And then when you have that conversation, focusing on the effort, letting them know that you're aware that their intention was to give the best, you see? And asking them what they feel went well. Because as much as you are hurting as a parent, you can imagine how much more they are hurting, right? And especially when it's a young person, their egos are very fragile. And there's a whole world that's watching them as well. So at many levels, they're affected. And then also understanding that, at least in my work, what I've seen is when I take my athletes through a journey of self-awareness and self-discovery, that the narratives they have about themselves, about, ये focus का issue था, या motivation का issue था, has been built in their head by the ecosystem around them. So what you think is a focus issue perhaps wasn't. Maybe it was something else. Maybe it was a confidence issue. Or maybe they were plain tired. So asking them after they've talked to you about what went well, because also know that if this athlete is kind of emotionally connected to you, the way you take them through that post-competition analysis is what they also train themselves to do. So being very mindful of that and asking them what might they should have done better or differently. You see, and then perhaps helping them understand, oh, perhaps this was a focus thing. And also ensuring that they don't blame themselves. Because the moment they start blaming themselves is when their attributions of success and failures become maladaptive. And then they get into a spiral, and that impacts their self-efficacy and their self-worth, and there's no end to that. So that is my suggestion.
Quick one to add, so if you can help them get into this habit of after the sport, sit down, whenever by yourself, look at what worked, what didn't work. Instead of saying what was wrong, what was missing. That if it was there, then it would have made a difference. Then it is not very, confronting and not like a wrong. So what was missing? I know, what worked is what went well, what worked. That's how you can start the conversation and end it there. If the conversation doesn't lead to what you want it to, by asking what worked, they have a tendency. I've seen this tendency that when they come back, all they want to talk about is what they didn't do well. Because I don't know, that's the human tendency. But then if you can train them to keep looking at what worked, what are some of the, and train ourselves as parents, look at all the things that they did well, like the effort part of it, not just the result, oh, that was an ace, or this is what worked, I think you didn't give up, things like that, like effort. You ask them those questions and then ask them to actually go back, sit and write down what worked, what didn't work. And that's what she was referring to as make them a lot more self-aware. And they getting into that exercise mode. Because as parents, it's very tough to detach ourselves. Because, I keep telling myself, be committed but not attached. So committed and not attached is something that I'm continuously trying to work. Zen parenting. I am committed to getting to, so not attached. When you are attached to his performance, etc., then it shows up.
I think we clearly have a book project here, but next question.
Hi. My question is to Sujit. I have an 11-year-old son, so he's going to cricket coaching for the last 2 years. So he wants to make it big. He wants to play for India. That's his focus currently. So how do I take it forward? I mean, right now he goes for 2 days in a week coaching session. So when do I know that, if he needs a one-on-one coaching specialized session or the number of coaching sessions should be increased? So how do we take it,
It's a great question. I see a lot of parents into cricket having the same issues. See, one thing which is wonderful is that he wants to make it big. That's his dream. And like I just now said, for him to pursue that dream and passion is something that you need to keep observing, whether he still has it. And every time he is into competition soon, I think they'll play matches. And as parents, if we are not so much focused on how well he is doing or performing, rather than looking at where he is learning and getting better, which are the areas that he is learning and getting better. If we have, as parents, orient ourselves to look in that direction, his passion will obviously continue to be there. And we sometimes, in the environment that we are in, the coaches, the other cricketers, they always look at the performance to measure whether they are really doing or growing. Not necessarily all the time, it will reflect, but asking those, orienting him towards, hey, where do you want to develop more? In this match, you did this, so you think you need to focus a lot more on your front foot, whatever that it is, in which area you want to develop. And if you want to develop, how do you think you'll work? So when you ask these questions, then maybe it will lead to him saying, yeah, maybe I should focus a lot more on this area. Maybe I should take a few more lessons from, individual lessons. So that is something that we can start having conversations. Because it's not one formula. We believe, sometimes as parents, we believe that if you invest a lot of time, effort, resources, money, then my son will make it or my daughter will make it. Not necessarily that if you put in so much of all of that, the outcome is that they'll reach the pinnacle. So being a lot more organic, see that again, structured, unstructured balance is very important. As parents, I think I know where you're coming from. You're already feeling the pressure of him having to reach his dream. It's his dream, not yours. So just be supportive in asking those questions and let him decide. Maybe you could ask his coaches. If the coaches are good, then they will come up with the right suggestions. Trust the coaches and the system, and then he'll progress. And if his passion and commitment is growing, then he is going in the right direction.
Your question, yeah?
Hi everyone, thanks for your great session, especially the moms, because I'm a mom of a 3.5-year-old, so I'm too early in this. But what is the right age to get them into this? Does the recreational exposure have an impact, or when they start choosing something themselves, that makes more of a difference? That was my basic question, because I have her in some football academy right now, like she's just practicing recreational. I've been finding, Nisha, I've been finding your classes for her for swimming for a long time, because I love swimming myself. And she's just 3.5 years, and usually they start at 5. But this is the gap I see, that in other countries, they start very early. Even at 6 months, swimming starts, and other trainings also start pretty early. So here we don't have that facility. But even if we do have, then how early we should start, and that recreational exposure, does it really, benefit them in the long run towards a sport career?
I think if you were here from the beginning of the session, what Nandan had up on the screen, the first slide, was very important. Where it talks about, one, the best thing you can do for your toddler, your infant, your growing child, is to be active in a sport yourself. So if the first person that they see, the people that they look up to, their heroes, who are their parents, if they're seeing them playing a sport, whether it's for fitness or just that regularity, that discipline or that passion for the sport, I think that is the first thing that you can do for your child. So because she's 3, obviously she doesn't understand fancy concepts or words. So taking her, like you said, you love swimming, take her to the pool and just let her have fun. So with my kids, I had just done a parent-toddler course, and so I knew what I needed to do with my kids. But at the same time, as a mom, I just wanted to play with them. So my first thing is, at the age of 6 months, they were in the pool. But they didn't actually learn proper swimming till they were 5 or 6. Not that I have my own academy, So the point is, get them involved in sports. And I feel that you need to have that balance, like not specializing too early. I didn't go in at 1 year and say my kids are going to be swimmers. I mean, you have the occasional, Richard Williams who brings up a Serena and Venus. But that's that's like a one-off that actually, where it works, where the kids don't burn out and they have what it takes. It doesn't always happen that way. So for me, it was like, let me just let them have fun. They played badminton because they had a good friend circle, right? They did little gym, which has some fun, kids gymnastics moves. So I feel some team sport is really important. Something to do with some athleticism, so athletics of any kind, and gymnastics. So anywhere abroad, if you go, they really focus on swimming, athletics, and gymnastics. That's a magic trio that they say is the best possible base, foundation you can give any kid to really perform in sports. Having said that, we have some really great sports like even cricket, right? I mean, in India, we have the opposite problem where we have too many people in cricket. Sorry, Sujit, I'm going to take off on my anti-cricket rants now. Wherein I was swimming at the Basunguri pool and next door was National College, and there were countless boys would go play cricket, come back, wet their hair and go home. I mean, not improving in swimming. They come to the pool and the coach is like, your kid hasn't been at swimming. He's playing cricket because he wants to be the next Sachin, So just expose them to different sports and give them the choice, because I know, I think as a child you'll see what makes them wake up in the morning. I had one father, I was doing a talk at, this is a big group of CEOs, obviously very influential, very smart, very high achievers. And this one father, CEO, asked me, he says, you know what, my son was doing moderately well at cricket, and then he decided he wants to play football. And with football, he'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning. With cricket, at 6 a.m. in the morning, I had to drag him out. But you know what? There's better ROI in cricket. I was like, really? Did you really just say ROI to me? And he said, yes. And he's like, I said, so which do you think I should choose? I said, your son is already showing you what he wants to do. And I said, do you know how hard it is to make it as a cricketer? Sujit mentioned, and he called himself failed cricketer. I don't think you should say that, but he went a very far. I mean, like, cricket is the most competitive sport. It is easier for his child to get into a football team, and play for in India than it is to get into a cricket team, because it's the sheer numbers. So you have to let your child decide. And the only thing you can do is expose them to different sports. And really see where they go. They might just decide they don't want to do a sport, but you want them to be healthy and active and enjoy the sport. So as a parent, as a 3.5-year-old, just play sports with them, and as they get older, take them to an academy or even in their school, something where they have proper stages where there's good progression. You don't want everybody just forcing your kid to compete. It could just be they want to swim for fitness. That should be okay if you're going to a place where So it's also important to know that sports has to be like a lifestyle, which is why Australians, Americans do better than we do. Because for them, sports is part of their daily life. I stayed with an Australian family who, they would finish swimming, then the mom would be out playing netball, the dad would be running with his, so they're so active. So just by virtue of being so active, they already are raising kids who can jump. In India nowadays, what are we doing? We're sitting with those books and trying to get 100%. And then you're expecting our country to also, win so many medals. So if you hear all the parents of the people who've actually made it, whether it's an Abhinav Bindra, whether it's a Sindhu, they always had their kids, they were very active in sports. They've ensured the kids had a good balance. Nobody's saying, stop your studies. Almost everybody I know has ensured they continue. But also the fact that it's very balanced, and from the time they're young, sports becomes part of their life, and that's how it should be.
Last question there. I think we could carry on for a long time, and we will write that book.
Is this audible? Okay. First off, thank you so much. I mean, really good insights, reinforce some of what I've thought and new thinking. Sorry to come back to the cricket thing. My daughter's 14 and plays competitively. So a question I have, which I think is very team specific, and I think Nandan referred to federation complexities, transparency in selection. So this is something that, how do I help my daughter navigate the fact that things change overnight, For example, names that were not on the list are suddenly in a final team. Language is an issue. Yeah, for example, if you don't speak, say, Kannada on the field and all, I've heard that there are fines that are being done in Karnataka, in other states. So how do you help your kid she's 14, right? So you're saying, just put in your effort, you'll get the payout. It's not happening all the time. I'm not saying it doesn't happen at all, but these are big things for very young minds to deal with, right? So she's getting up by herself at 5:30, she goes for practice, she goes to school, all of that's happening. So I struggle with the other bits of it.
So the school of life, how much do you fight with them, and how much do you...
So it's very real, right? So that's what is happening. See, the unfortunate thing is those are things that you can't do anything. You as a parent, she as a cricketer, she can't just do anything about it. because that is bound to be there at different levels at different places. All that I think we need to focus as a team, you and her and you, just to look at how to just keep pursuing what to be passionate and to get up in the morning. Why are you doing that? Sometimes, people take that up as a challenge and say, hey, I'm not going to, it'll positively motivate me, probably to get the best out of me. I'll use that as a motivating factor that I will work harder. And if I can win matches for the team. Now, one other very important thing that I keep telling people is, in cricket at least it's easier because it's a team sport. Now, why you're playing cricket, why is she playing cricket is to help the team win. Only if she is useful to the team, she is successful. And that is the recalibration that we do to navigate the fear of failure. Now, if you want to be useful for that team and if for any team you play, then what are some of the skills you need to pick up? If she is going to be helping enough matches to be won, whether she speaks French, it doesn't matter. Right? Now, if you are really playing to get selected, if that is the primary focus, then everything goes towards that, which is the fact. I mean, we all want people to play at the highest level, representative cricket, this, that, all of that. But that's the underlying thing. But how can we now put that away and focus on things that we can do something about, right? Because the more you chase trying to make it, the further away it gets. And then that gets into her system. And if we as parents, sometimes we talk about, they say there's so much politics and there's so much of all this. Yeah, so we talk so much about all of that. I see that as parents when we are watching, we'll keep watching and validating our belief that, see, that person is talking to this guy, I think he knows, and maybe they've paid some money there. All of that. So we as parents stand and watch for hours. We need something to also entertain us. So jokes apart, but this should not get into their conversation. Yeah, so sometimes we do that. Sometimes we also say, hey, don't worry, man. I know you did well, but what to do? They don't encourage people from this state, or you don't speak Kannada. I used to use this to tell my son, hey, if you don't learn how to speak Kannada, no, in Karnataka, there's no place for you. I was trying to motivate him to start learning Kannada, but then no. So this is something that we can't do anything. It stays everywhere. I mean, politics and this and the favoritism, we are a relationship-oriented country, India. You can never take that away that somebody knows somebody better. But at the end of it, if she works on her own game and if she becomes useful to any team that she plays, that's the context, not her centuries and things. How can you be somebody who the team wants? How can you become that player who the team says, when we used to play all these gully cricket, hey, let's call Nandan, he's such a hard hitter. Nandan was a very, very good cricketer. I mean, I don't know what made you stop at that level that you stopped. You could have made it, so when we had these conversations, I was thinking, Nandan, probably you could have played for the state, whatever, but you chose to pursue your passion. And we can't call, so sometimes we feel, oh shit, I should have continued to play and I would have played for, so what? At the end of the day, if I have played for the country, I mean, I'm no better than anyone else who has achieved something else, right? So that as parents, we need to understand that at the end of it, whatever they pursue, and then if they're happy and they're emotionally, fulfilled, that should be the aim. And even for her, she should use that to motivate herself, to really build herself to be useful for the team that she plays. That applies to the team's sports. So I think you should filter all of that. That's going to stay wherever you go, even in the same state if you go. Right?
In school, you get children come back saying that they were getting bullied in class. There are two bullies, perpetual bullies in class. So what do you say? I mean, you can't say slap them back, or you say you have to be strong. That's what we tell our kids. So it's the same way. I mean, you have to let pass this comment and what is happening, and you'll shine somewhere else.
No, and Auntie Raji might remember. I remember Meghna and me had a chance to go for the 1996 Olympics. And because there's so many events in swimming, there's not just one national champion or one. So Meghna was top in a few events, I was top in a few events. And guess who went to the Olympics? An American girl who had never swum in India before. Indian parent, one was Indian, one was American. American
They
citizenship.
just got a
Yeah, so
some
obviously we
passport
know that,
program.
politics happens. So instead, like what Sujit said was such great advice, where my parents said, listen, I am not bribing any Indian officials to send you to the 2000 Olympics. So you have 4 years, you do whatever it takes, we'll do whatever it takes, and you have to qualify. So you just have to change the narrative and kind of flip it on its head. And like,
Yeah, we were always told that you're not doing enough for your child. You should be sitting in Delhi and bribing the officials there. But we had, my husband had a job and we needed money for what we were doing here. So, yeah.
So, what's one adjective that you would use for sports parenting?
Okay, you can think.
I'm thinking.
Non-interference.
I think just support wholeheartedly.
Okay. 2 adjectives. Yeah.
chaotic.
Chaotic.
I was going to say roller coaster, yeah. Not exactly adjective.
Well, because it does not come with a instructional manual, I would say just enjoy it, and don't forget to love them.
Teresa, last word. You had enough time.
I think give them the choice.
Choice. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Over to you, Vikram. Thanks to all the panelists.
Thank you. This was a topic that was very close to my heart. Early on in my life, I had to make the difficult choice of giving up a middling career in tennis to take on a middling career in engineering. But when Nandan and I talked about this idea, it was so close to us. And the panelists, thank you so much for the honesty and the candor, right? Like, I mean, I think just emotionally letting people know what it is, and even people who couldn't be here, this video will be absolute gold. So thank you so much, and Nandan, thank you so much for the thoughtful moderation. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.